All right, episode 31, roll it.
31.
Welcome back to the Volly House Podcast. We are here at Colca Studios, so if you need a firehouse built, give them a call. Download the Firewire app, go to the volleyhousepodcast.com to ask us questions or send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. Also, give us a follow on all social media platforms at Volly House Podcast. And this episode is brought to you by Command Board. Every video we see from a career department incident shows an incident command board on scene. Yet, in many NIOSH LODD reports, a recurring finding is the lack of proper incident command. As a chief in the volunteer fire service, your responsibility is to ensure the safety of everyone operating at every incident. Gone are the days of managing this in your head or on a simple whiteboard. The owner of Command Board, a volunteer fire chief, took this challenge head on by developing a professional tool tailored for volunteer fire officers. These command boards are designed with size, affordability, and most importantly, accountability at the forefront. Packed with critical information and checklists, they're built to help you stay organized and focused at every event. Visit icommandboard.com today and take the next step in ensuring the safety and success of your department. And with that,
this week I brought the other drop-in. If you already have something in your car and you just want to add, he's got these little drop-ins you can put right into your car. So it's pretty neat. You put it on their piece of plexiglass.
yep.
He gives one of those, and then he's got the other drop-in boards for each individual.
You put it on your windshield when you're on your way to the scene?
Yeah, I drive around with it. I just put it up. When I want to park somewhere illegally, I just throw it on my window.
Right.
No, but
Cops like that.
Yeah.
they like that. But yeah, these are also drop-ins for the actual boards themselves. So pretty nice.
All right, well, with that being said, welcome, Glenn Usdin. Thank you for coming on
My
the show
pleasure.
and coming
Thanks
out here.
for having me.
Of course, absolutely. Excited to,
He took a long trek out from Lancaster.
yeah, so if you want to give yourself an introduction and a little bit about your background, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know who you are, but
Well,
by all means.
glad to be here. Glad to take the train up. And I've been a firefighter. I got sworn into the Massapequa Fire Department on July 1st, 1974.
Wow.
The earliest memory I have, it was probably 1959 or 1960. My parents took me to the firehouse, 281 and 147 Cortelia Road in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And the earliest memory of I have is on the front bumper of the engine company. So I've been a
That kind of
firefighter.
sparked it?
Yeah, from that was, like I said, either 59 or 60. So I've been doing this a long time.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Now you are the owner of Command Fire.
Right, Command Fire Apparatus in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
And then also a member of the fire department out in Lancaster.
Well, kind of. I was the first fire chief. There were two independent fire companies in Lancaster Township, and in 1990 and 91, the municipal body, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, is basically townships, and the township supervisors said, we don't want to have two independent fire companies that are not affiliated with each other. And they basically decided that there was going to be one fire department, the two fire companies would be out, and that there was going to be an integrated one single fire department. They did basically an assessment. Everybody had a 60-day assessment period, and they had applications, and they had a review board, which was the career staff of the Allentown Bureau of Fire. Basically received all the applications and made a recommendation to the supervisors over who was going to be the new fire chief. And I was very honored to be picked as the new fire chief. And I served as the chief of department for 16 years. It was the first chief. So it was
Wow.
kind of cool to start a fire department from scratch in this day and age.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was a appointed position as a fire chief?
They appointed me as the fire chief. One of the issues that I gave them was I said, I'll take the appointment, but I don't want to have to run for re-election in 2 years. So I think it was either 4 years or 6 years that they gave me. I said, a lot of the things, and there were, again, two separate fire departments that ran in the same territory. I said, you're going to step on people's toes, which is a big issue in the volunteer fire service. I said, if you don't give me, it was either 4 years or 6 years. I said, if you don't give me free reign for a number of years to make the hard decisions and make this department whole, I don't want it. So they agreed, and in their initial bylaws they put in there. So it was either 4 years or 6 years that I had didn't have to run for election.
It would make sense because starting a brand new fire department, there's a lot of work that's going to have to be put into that, a lot of rules to be put in place, bylaws, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, to only have 2 years to do that, you're going to be rushing everything basically, and then if you do an election and somebody else comes in, yeah, I totally understand that.
So it was challenging. It was probably one of the more exciting things I ever did in my life to get the chance to start from scratch. And I could tell you one of the funniest things that I did after I believe it was the first year, I got all the members of the department together and we cooked them breakfast on a Sunday morning, and we made a square table. So I had about 45, 50 people sitting all around the table, and I sat at the head and I said, "Tell me everything you don't like about what we've done as a department so far." And I turned into a circular firing squad. And I said, "I will never do that again." So it was a debacle. It was a disaster. Since this is a PG rated show, I won't say what it really was. But
You could say it's a shit show.
it was a shit show.
You could say
It's okay. It was a shit show.
I mark everything not for kids when I post it.
Yeah.
And I never did that again. But it gave me a good lesson in not only humility, but a lesson in leadership. And it was just we didn't like the way you picked up this or you did this, and I'm like, what does that have to do with running a fire department? So it was interesting that when you give people the chance to express themselves, sometimes some strange stuff comes out.
Yeah, for sure.
How long were you in Massapequa before you moved out?
I was in 15 years.
15 years. And were you an officer and everything when you went?
I was a lieutenant in Massapequa Fire Department. I was also the Department Public Information Officer, and I was involved on the training committee and public education. So I was pretty active. I worked for a number of years with Jeb Lattiser, who started Fire News on Long Island. So I was one of their photographers from the 70s through the 80s, and I was pretty well known around the island taking pictures. I worked professionally. I was the associate publisher of Fire Engineering magazine, so I was pretty well known around the area, and I have to say, the Massapequa Fire Department saved my life and gave me my life. So everything that I have 50 years later is because of my association with the Massapequa Fire Department.
That's awesome.
Back to Long Island once again.
Yeah. Well, you know how we do it on this show, and obviously we're going to ask if you have any stories to recall from either your Massapequa days or your early days in Pennsylvania, but we're going to go with suspended or not. And
Glasses, please. Phil's got to get a pair.
I'm still the only one without
Yeah.
glasses. Even he's got glasses.
yeah, use code VHP15 for 15% off on frontlineoptics.com. So this one, after a department function, we sent a probie up in the dumbwaiter to unlock the upstairs kitchen where all the food was locked away. Once we were done eating our late night meal, we pack everything up and lock up the kitchen like it never happened. Suspended or not?
Not.
Did they get caught?
No.
I have a
trouble.
unique perspective on suspensions, and I was good friends with Chief Alan Bernstein from the Phoenix Fire Department, and he spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania. And one day he put his arm, and I was telling him about something that somebody did and screwed up something in my fire department. He puts his arm around me, and he says, "Glenny, you ever been suspended?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I was suspended. I was a real screw up in Massapequa." He goes, "When you were suspended, did you come back and feel like you deserved the suspension?" I go, "No." He goes, "Nobody who ever gets suspended comes back and goes, 'That was the best thing that ever happened to me.'"
Yeah.
He said, "So when you go through and you suspend people, whether you suspend them in the Phoenix Fire Department or FDNY or the Massapequa or Lancaster Township Fire Department, you create somebody who doesn't like you for no other reason than you suspended them." As a chief of department for 16 years, there are instances where people need to be suspended. There are instances where people need to be separated from your fire department. Use them really sparingly, because nobody gets suspended and comes back and goes, "That was the best thing that ever happened to me, Chief. Thank you."
Yeah.
Makes you sour.
It does.
Yeah, it does. And a lot of it, I mean, we get a lot of these on the show that we talk about, and some of them are just kind of like, what? Like, that
You're
person
getting
got
suspended
suspended
from
for that?
being a volunteer for free, and then you come back and you go, oh, thanks, that was worthwhile.
And some departments
right?
are like super, super strict. Like
Yeah.
you literally outside that line, any bit, and you're suspended. Like not even a little leeway. Like just you're outside, you're not following, you're suspended.
It's ridiculous. Oh, you did
And then
something
they
wrong.
wonder why
You can't
wonder-
help your community anymore.
And you wonder why you can't
Bitch.
get volleys. But there are times, like I said, it's absolutely deserved. No matter what, it's deserved.
Theft,
Yep.
sexual harassment, disrespect, or outright breaking the rules. Those are things that sometimes, and I almost felt as the chief of department, that there were people who were deliberately testing me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Well, think about the people that you gave a warning number 1, warning number 2, and then it's like the
There
third
is no
time
warning
there
number
is no
3.
more warning.
There is no
And
warning
then it's
3.
like, well, why are you doing this to me? And it's like, well, you had warnings. Like you didn't think that you doing this again is going to get you in trouble. I mean, come on, what are we doing here?
Well, I just look at it as a suspension as a failure, and the problem is, and I don't think this is a wonderful podcast, but I don't think that enough people realize when you're a volunteer fire chief, even a career fire chief, that the entire organization is looking at you. They're looking at everything you do. They're looking at how you do it. One of the greatest compliments I ever got was one of the guys said, you know, Glenn, when you get on a scene, you're calm on the radio. We hear your voice raise up a little bit. They said, when you pick up the radio and say, County Chief 66, we know we got something, but you got it under control. And everybody, and as the chief of department, you're in a really unique position that everybody is watching everything you do. Mm-hmm. And I've lived in 2 systems. I lived on the Long Island system for 15 years, where basically you go through the chairs and you're gone. And then I was the chief of department for 16 years. I got to buy apparatus. I got to do all kinds of different things. There are pluses and minuses from both systems. But when you have a chief and they look at you, I tell everybody, you got your kids at home, and then you got your kids at the fire department.
Yep.
And you're responsible for all of that. Just the way you'd be responsible if your kid got hurt or anything happened at school, whatever. Everything that happened to one of my firefighters was my responsibility. So it really was awesome. And I have to tell you, I'm going to say this with all just wonderful feeling. Every volunteer firefighter in America needs to watch your podcast with Tommy Richardson, because everything that man said, I kind of anecdotally knew him when I lived on Long Island, and then I got to be friends with him when he became the chief of department and put him in my book. Everything that man said was just spot on. Perfect. And his lessons for how to treat, and I can tell you a little story. When we were doing the book, I did a book you may have heard of called They Saved New York, about the New York City Fire Department. And when we had the photo session at the Deer Park Fire Department, every person that came in that room, he knew had been one of his firefighters. You were in this company. You were here. You served here. I remember your dad. It was every single person. It's the chief of the New York City Fire Department knew everybody. And when he told a story about going around the room for you guys here, that's the way he is. And if you wanted to go into Google and Google the term fire chief, his picture should be up there.
Yeah. That was a great conversation with him. And obviously that one got quite a few listens across our platforms, but it was really, every guest we have in here is a really enjoyable conversation. And that one with Tom Richardson, I remember getting up, because I think we went 2 hours.
You went 2 hours because
Yeah.
I listened to it on the train.
That was a long
on the
one.
way home today. On the way here today.
And we probably could have kept going.
Yeah, we probably could have. But I remember I got up, and my back was soaked because these freaking
Sweat.
lights
It's
up
hot
here
in
and the
there, yeah.
chairs.
It's hot.
Yeah,
I always say it, people listening don't know what it's like to sit here.
Yeah, I know.
Freaking sweating, counting the minutes till we got to take a piss.
yeah, right. We usually go into job of the week. You have anything recent from Pennsylvania? Any big jobs over there? You guys cover what, 16 square miles in that district?
Yeah, we have 16 square miles. We had 2 stations. We're now down to 1 station. We just built a new multi-million-dollar station that's in the middle between where the prior stations were, and moved everything into 1 station. It's been all of the economies of scale that we said when we pitched having a 1 station have come to fruition. So it's nice there. It was interesting. Most of the fire departments in Pennsylvania, the volunteer departments don't do EMS. So we do 500, 600 runs a year, all fire. And it's one of the things from 1989 when I moved there to looking at Long Island today is they have a box alarm system in place that Long Island didn't have, and is just barely starting to get into the automatic mutual aid.
Yep.
We basically on a structure fire or any incident, they could pull the computer pulls an engine or a truck or whatever. So you're going just like FDNY or Philadelphia or Chicago, your truck's going here and the engine might be going there, and you could, depending on geographically, sometimes the units from your own station are not first due at your own fires.
We actually just had a submission from somebody
About getting beat in.
No, this came in like over the weekend or whatever. Some guy out west was saying that their fire department had an issue where they would, I guess the county 911 system would not activate other departments for a structure fire until somebody from the one department was on scene, which kind of is how it usually was like here.
Already having jurisdiction.
But now it's, they said there was concern because it's a huge district. It's a rural area, and they're not alerting these. They're not alerting these people.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
It's even an issue in our area because it's not geographically biased. It still is the chief from each fire company or fire department submits his box assignments to county. So you don't always have the closest company. So it's not the system isn't geo-tracking and saying, oh, this is the next new engine, the closest engine. So it's still.
Well, that's what I said to him. I said,
behind.
your best bet is to go talk to your chiefs and have them talk with the chiefs in the surrounding departments that surround you, come up with a plan and bring it up to county. If that's what you guys really want to do and get that moving, that's probably the best way to go about it. But yeah, like you said, we've been talking about this topic, the automatic aid,
A lot.
a lot, because it has been popping up recently, and I'm pretty sure at this point everyone on the island is doing it for the most part.
I don't know about everybody, but a lot of we were actually having this conversation on the ride over here about how 4, 5, 6 departments respond. Where when we joined, you were even before me, but even when I joined, sometimes there'd be a fire in my district, and I didn't even know about it because it was only a 2-station response instead of 3. And he said the same thing. Massapequa was like that as well, where you didn't even know there was a fire in your own jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So I got sworn into the Massapequa Fire Department, July 1st, 74. 3 firehouses in Massapequa, the East End, the Park House, the West End. I went the whole summer into the fall before the first fire that the East End went to. It was October 31st, 74. So there were numerous fires in Massapequa in that time, but they were all in the West End and the Park House, and we didn't even get alerted.
Yeah, you don't even
and
know.
if they were going to be, if it was a long operation, they might contact or alert the 3rd station to go stand by it in quarters. But most of them, if it was just a 1 or 2 bedroom house fire, we didn't even go. So the East End, we could wake up in the morning and say, oh, they had a signal 10 in the West End. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's wild.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, RIT teams and everything else now that you have to. So it's
Yeah.
crazy.
So one question I had for you is when you transferred, because you did 15 years in Massapequa and then you went to that department in Pennsylvania, I assume based on what you told us earlier that you joined one of those 2 departments in Lancaster. When you transitioned, how did that process go? Did they, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, did they accept your certifications here? How'd that go?
So it was very funny. There was a firehouse right near the post office where I got my mail for my fire apparatus company. And so I was just there 2-3 weeks, and I wanted to be a firefighter. So I went to that firehouse. And they were not real happy to have a guy from New York there.
Really?
They didn't like it at all. And they said, we don't hang out here. We don't have a back room. You never stay at the firehouse. And it was a fairly busy fire
They heard
company.
stories. That's
No, yeah. They said we don't do that here. And I would go, and where I would come from my house to the development, there was one traffic light across the street from the firehouse, and the assistant chief of that fire company knew I was coming and would see me at the traffic light and would just take off on the rig by himself or with one guy in the back. And I'm like, and I did this for like 3-4 months or 2 months, whatever it was. And I'm like, why don't you wait for me? I'm right there. So one day we had a fire in a motel. And it was a working fire in one of the rooms in the motel. And it was in their first due area. And I got to the fire, and there was a ladder truck. The aerial up. It was a 75-foot Pierce Quint. And I had been in Ladder Company 6 in Massapequa Fire Department. And I love truck work. And I'm like, whoa, there's a ladder company here. That's for me. And I walked over to the guys, like, tell me a little bit about yourselves. And they said, where are you? And they said, oh, yeah, we heard about the guy from New York who moved in here. And they're like, do you know you're in our first due area? I'm like, no way. They said, yeah, you're right down the street from our firehouse. I didn't even know where the firehouse was. So I put an application in there. The guys from the other fire company tried to blackball me from joining the other fire company. He's trouble. He's all he wants to do is stuff like New York and all kinds of other crap. And the guy still took me. So I joined that fire company. And this was right in the transition period where they were going to, they called it the consolidation. And they had a nonpartisan municipal group come in and do this study for the township supervisors that said that there should be one fire company. So that was about a 2-year period. It was really, it was the best and worst of volunteer politics. Each company had different. The company I belonged to protected the wealthier neighborhood of town, so they had a really good endowment. They had a lot of money in the bank. The other fire company was in the more the busier area that had a bunch of townhouses and a lot of fire calls. So it was the Hatfields and McCoys for about 2 years.
Nice.
And after, like I said, the township supervisors said, we're done with all of you firefighters. April 1st, 1991, there is going to be a new fire department, Lancaster Township Fire Department. And if either of you two fire companies don't want to join, we don't care. Whoever, this is it. That's the drop dead date.
Was this volunteer?
Yeah, all volunteer. Yep.
When they consolidated, still stayed volunteer?
Yeah, it's still volunteer.
So this now makes a lot of sense to your earlier story about you asking that question, what are we doing right with that round table, and everyone started coming after you?
Right.
Must have been the guys from that first fire station you went to.
They remembered.
It was definitely a lot of that.
What was their issue? Did they ever give you a reason why they didn't like guys from New York? Or
I'm sitting in New York. I love New York. I'm here, almost every week. I'm in either New York City or on the island. There is a different perception, and I think it's a perception because, as far as I'm concerned, the people in New York are the nicest, friendliest, coolest, best people in the world. But there is a perception around the country of
that we're all assholes.
Giant
They're
kind
not
of jerks.
friendly. Yep.
So I'll give you a funny story. I started the fire apparatus company. It was called Northeast at the time on Long Island. I used to have rigs parked in my driveway in Massapequa, and customers would call me up to buy a rig. Where are you located? Well, I'm in Massapequa on Long Island. Do we got to go through New York City to get there?
Yeah, we're not coming.
And I'm like, yeah, you can't get to Long Island without going through New York City. Click.
Yep.
And I heard that probably 10 or 15 times.
Wow.
And I said, this is not a good look. And this was right around the time when in the late 80s, when New York City was having really rough times.
Yeah.
And with crime and drugs, and it was a horrible time. So I was looking for a place, and I had gone to the PA Fire Expo, the one that's now in Harrisburg. It was, at that point, it was in
That's a
the
big
group
one,
of
right?
tents
The
on
Harrisburg one?
and in Lancaster. And I had gone there with Tommy Brennan. A lot of people.
Did they have the muster there too? Years
No,
ago?
the muster's in Harrisburg.
That's in Harrisburg.
Right.
Okay, I know one of them had
But
it.
I don't know if any of you guys remember Tom Brennan.
Yep, sure.
From West Sayville and he was the editor of Fire Engineering when I was the associate publisher. And I'd been there, and I said, what a great place. Lancaster, it's 2.5 hours from New York. It's 81, 83, 95, we're all right there. So that was where we moved. So the guy from New York invaded the town.
Nice.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense.
Let me ask you this: do they allow members to respond to the scene there in PA, where you are, or is around your area? I know
So-
some places are like that, where they just go to the scene; they don't even go to the firehouse.
Yeah, no, we're a very suburban area. We've
Okay.
got 15, 18,000 people in 16 square miles. So we're suburban. No, in our department, firehouse only.
Firehouse only.
Right on the
Okay.
rigs. You can go 40 or 50 60 miles away from us, and there are areas around within an hour, hour and a half that they might have 100 square miles. So
Wow.
there, sometimes people will go because of the work I do with the fire truck company, and again, almost all volunteer fire departments buy from me. I hear departments that one person goes to the scene,
Check it
Johnny lives across the street from the firehouse, and so he takes the rig, and then everybody meets him at the scene, keeps their gear in their car. Where I am, that was just absolutely verboten, forbidden. Do not do it.
Okay.
Yep, that's a good way. We were talking about suspend or not. That's a good way to get it.
Yeah, I know. There's departments that still are kind of heavy on that, where you get the one guy taking the truck out, and then everyone else just kind of goes to the scene. But interesting that you guys kind of follow the same way, I guess, that our departments have.
Well, let me give you another example. Massapequa Fire Department. The first Tuesday of the month was the general membership meeting. Second Tuesday is the officers meeting, and the last is the company meeting. Well, when I started the Lancaster Township Fire Department, first Tuesday of the month is the general membership meeting, and second Tuesday of the month is the
You didn't
officers
wanna
meeting.
forget.
So I kind of took what I'd grown up with in
Yep.
Massapequa and threw it into the
Right.
mix. So they don't know it. They probably still don't know why we have it on the first
Well, they
Tuesday
do
of the
now.
month.
Yeah.
They do now.
They're listening.
Hey, as long as it works, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Is there any places in Suffolk that they respond in their cars? I feel like that. I don't really
don't
hear
think
it.
Most
so.
places do not. I mean, there were some departments on the East End that were for a while. I don't know if they still do. But I think most people just go to the firehouse
Yeah.
at this point.
I know my friend in
I
Freeport.
mean, there are, obviously.
Freeport's big on. There's a couple Nassau departments that
Yeah, I
are
mean,
that are
if,
big with
if
that.
you're passing the scene or, you're an EMT and it's an ambulance call, some departments allow you to stop.
I pulled up on a freaking driving last week on Vets, and I see people I'm going west, and in the eastbound lane, I see people pulling over and running out of their cars. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And my phone rang for a car accident. It just said fuel spill. I'm like, why are these guys running out of, like, pedestrians, not pedestrians, bystanders, running out of their car on Vets Highway, sitting in northern state traffic. They're all running. And I see fuel spill. I'm like, what is this? So I just, Autumn Drive. I made like a U-turn to Autumn Drive. I get out of my car, and it's just like a shit show. 5 cars involved, freaking debris everywhere, freaking like 20 people standing in the middle of Vets Highway. I'm like, oh shit. The cops weren't even there yet. I pull up in my car because we have the radio. We don't have portables anymore. We have Zello. Are you familiar with Zello?
Yeah,
it's
I've
like
heard about it, yeah.
voice over IP. I get out of my car. First thing I do, I get out of my car and I go, well, I got nothing. I'm like, I got nothing on me. The Zello input is just not great. So when I key in on my phone, dispatcher can't even hear me.
That's a bad cell area right there. It's not
Not
good.
even that. It's just the Zello is not great.
Remember when we had Nextels?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hit the button.
So I walk up and I'm like, well, I have 0 equipment. I can't communicate with anybody. I recognize the cops from the firehouse. And I'm like, well, now what do I do? And now I know I got to call my admin line for the dispatcher because the Zello app I just can't communicate through. But speaking of responding in your car, I just was like literally driving past.
It
I'm like,
happens.
I'm like,
you're
oh,
going to
shit.
come across stuff from
Yeah.
I actually have a Halligan in my truck if I needed it.
It's 4 centuries somewhere.
super buff.
Rip a
so-
door open.
You were a writer with Fire Engineering,
I was the associate publisher.
associate publisher. So what like stories did you kind of get into with Fire Engineering?
Well, the associate publisher is basically the business guy.
Okay.
And Tom Brennan, who a lot of us older people knew, he was the truly legendary captain of a Ladder 111 in the city, and he was an instructor at Suffolk County at Yaphank, and just really all around just master of firefighting. He passed away a few years ago.
And he had the back page for
Back page for
forever.
a year and a couple of books, and he's just an incredible guy. And so he was the fire guy, and I actually hired Tom right out of the nut house, right out of Tower Ladder 111, and we had an associate editor. We had an editor who just really wasn't doing as much as we wanted business wise to get the interest in. And this woman Jackie said, "I know the captain of Ladder 111, 214 111, New York in Brooklyn." And I said, "Bring him in." So she brought him in, and he spent an hour talking with me. And he had this was in 82, 83, 84, around 84. And he came in, and I'll never forget, he smelled like fire. They'd had a night tour that was, one of those night tours from hell. They probably had 4 or 5 jobs. And he didn't even take a shower. He just came in, put his tweed sport jacket on, and came in real raspy voice. His hair was all over. And I went to my boss, who was the group publisher. I said, "This is the guy.
Yeah.
This is what we need." So we hired him. So he's a no nonsense guy. He had enough time on the job. His dad had been on the job. His dad actually had died in the line of duty, and so he was ready to retire. So he came in. And it was just incredible. And to listen to this guy tactically talk about everything, and all the time, "Hey, Glenn, come in the office. And I go in, this is again before the internet, and he had this envelope that had come in from some North Carolina or Tennessee or whatever. And they would be 30 or 40 pictures and 20 pages of stories about this shopping mall that burned up, or row of stores, or apartment complex, or whatever. And he goes, "Glenn," he said, "well, you go through all this shit." And I'd go through the photos and read everything. He said, "You think the fire would have been any different if they didn't show up at all?" and he go, "I don't know. There ain't no lessons learned here." He said, "If the guys, they would have saved all that diesel fuel and everything else." And he said, "If they hadn't shown up at all, would the fire have turned out the same?"
It would have burnt to the ground. It's done.
Burned to the ground. So he go, "I can't put this shit in there." And it's like, okay. And and at that time, this was in the mid '80s when Firehouse magazine was just starting getting popular, and Firehouse magazine would have 120, 130 pages, 40, 50 pages of advertising, and I was in charge of the advertising, and I was like really scraping the bottom to get people to advertise, because people would say to us, "Firehouse magazine is 120,000 or 110,000 subscribers. You guys got 35,000. Their magazine's got to be 3 times better than yours." And I would go, "Well, we have the chiefs, the training officers, all the people who are actually involved in the tactical and management of the fire department." So it was difficult to get, but we persevered. And of course, I think everybody's aware, FDIC is fire engineering now, and
Yep.
They've really got that incredible reputation. But it was so funny. So Tommy and I were we're fighting against the wind, and kind of we were right down the street from 8 and 2 in Midtown. We were on 53rd and 3rd, and the chief of department at that time was a firefighter, John O'Rourke, who had been with Tommy fireman in Ladder 105 and it started in the early 60s. And John was the chief of department. He would come into our office all the time, and his aide would be in the hall with the radio, sometimes downstairs in the car. And the chief of FDNY was coming in the office and hanging out with us for a few hours. We'd go out to lunch, and it was really incredible stuff. We would go out to lunch. I remember one time we were at the New York Chiefs show, and it was at the Concord, and we organized a dinner. We had I think it was still then back four captains, rescue captains from FDNY out to dinner.
Oh, wow.
So here's this Volly from the Massapequa Fire Department hosting a dinner with all the rescue captains of FDNY. Ray Downey was part of that group, and Norbert Meehan. I mean, just some real legendary people. So I've had a good life.
And now, did this all spawn the book, They Saved New York? Is that kind of where these ideas started coming up? I mean, obviously, I know you mentioned before in the, early 60s, late 50s, whatever it was, when you first sat down in that fire truck. What was the idea behind They Saved New York, and how did that whole thing come about?
2 words. Dennis Smith. Report from Engine Company 82. In 1972, my parents bought that book for me. I was 16 years old, and I read it on that porch of my house on Nassau Shores in Massapequa, cover to cover. And at that point, all I wanted to do in my life was become an FDNY firefighter. I ended up screwing that up, but that was like the greatest thing. And when I joined the Massapequa Fire Department, and we were driving that 1968 Mack pumper up and down East Shore Drive or Merrick Road or wherever, in my mind, I was driving Engine 82, riding in the back of Engine 82 up Intervale Avenue.
Nice.
And that started it all for me. And if anybody who's listening has not read Report from Engine Company 82, buy it, study it, read it. That was the ultimate fire book.
It's phenomenal.
Why do you say you messed up with the city fire department?
Because I messed up.
Would you like a test?
I got 100 on the written test, and when they got called, when they called you for the physical exam, it was 77, December 77, the same test that Tommy Richardson took and a lot of FDNY legends took. And in the interim, I had gotten a job as an insurance investigator investigating arson for an insurance group out in Chicago. So I moved to Chicago in May or June of 79. And I was out there about 2-3 months, and I got the postcard, report to the Armory in Brooklyn for your physical test. And I had been taking, at Floyd Bennett Field, one of the groups of guys on the job had set up a mock physical test where you had to jump over the wall and all the other things. And as you can see, I'm not the beefiest, strongest guy in the world, but I was barely over it. I got 100 on the physical, on the written. So if I just passed the physical, I would have got on. I would have been, that was the first test after the layoffs in FDNY in the early mid-'70s. So I would have gotten on. I think they hired more from that list than any other list in recent history. So I got a job as an insurance investigator. I moved to Chicago, where I was investigating fires all around the country. And I got the postcard, said report such and such date to the Armory, 10 o'clock, you're in, group number 10-5. And I'm living in Chicago. I hadn't worked out 2-3 months, 4 months. It was going to cost me $300 to fly back to New York. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was making like $35,000 a year. And the starting pay in 79, 80, 81 for the job was like 16 or 17,000.
Yep.
Wow.
So I just never reported for the physical.
Right. Yeah.
So
Kind of makes sense that day and age, I guess, you were making double that amount at that point.
Yeah.
And I apologize if anyone can hear
Yeah. The noise in the background. That's why I was.
They might
Yeah, I
be
was wondering why.
they might be trying to one up us, but I remember this happened, I think, with Devonsky,
Yeah.
and we didn't hear
It
it.
did happen.
So, getting back to they saved New York, what was the whole story behind that?
I was Dennis Smith groupie in the 70s. There was a guy, George Adcock, who was a member of the Bell Club in New York and the Fire Bell Club of New York. And one night in the summer of 74, he said, want to go in the city? We're going to the city tonight. I'm like, for what? He goes, we're going buffing. And I'm like,
We're buffing.
what's buffing? He said, just get in the car. And him and his son, Alan Adcock, and I, we went in and we crossed. We were just getting into Queens, and the fire radio, if anybody just remembers the 70s, it was just, there would be 10 or 15 jobs in the city a night. And you would just, it was kind of like a hunch. And when you got into like the Interborough, they used to call it, and the Grand Central to the Interborough, and you either went north or you went west into Brooklyn. And the Bronx was really hopping that night.
Ranking.
So he said, we're going to the Bronx. And I'm just like, wow. We get over the Throgs Neck Bridge, 1075, 1075, 1075.
You just see like the glow of fire.
You can see the smoke columns in New York at that time. And we went to the Bronx. I remember we were going up Southern Boulevard, and 82 engine was going one way, 85 engine crossed them going the other, both going to fires, same time, 2 engines out of the same house at the time. And it was just... The first night I was just, can you say orgasm on this show?
Yeah,
It was like that good.
It's right. In the credits, we say no homo.
So I was like, holy crap, this is incredible. I mean, I think the first night we saw like 5 or 6 jobs.
Wow.
And,
That's hilarious.
oh, it was fire.
Imagine
fire,
a night
fire.
out.
I'm hooked.
Yeah.
Get in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
Bring your camera.
Hook, line, and sinker.
They'd have, another night, July 1st, 1975. Doesn't mean anything to you guys. They had layoffs. They did the layoffs.
Yep.
And there was just an unbelievable amount of fires, and they had laid off thousands of firefighters. We went to one fire, I'll never forget it. There was an engine there with it was either battalion or deputy chief. Engine had the deck gun going. We're in the Bronx, the South Bronx, battalion so-and-so to the Bronx. When's my truck coming? You got ladder company, whatever, coming. They're crossing the Verrazano Bridge now.
Yeah.
That's the first new truck crossing the Verrazano Bridge to the
Wow.
Bronx. It was amazing. So I was just in love with Dennis Smith. We used to hang out outside on if you know where 82 and 31 are, it's basically 5 streets come together there on Intervale Avenue. And we would hang out there 2-3 hours waiting for them. And they'd get a run, and we'd follow them, and it was nothing, or sometimes it was a low fire or whatever. I met Dennis Smith 10 or 15 years later when I was working at Fire Engineering because he had started Firehouse. And I came up to him at the New York State Chiefs show, and somebody knew I wanted to meet him, and they introduced me, and he was this little guy about this high. The great Dennis Smith, you know, I'm like 5'11", and I'm like, this is Dennis Smith. He's like that high. And he said, hi, Glenn, I'm Dennis. And we just became friends. So fast forward 30 years later, and him and I become very good friends. He wrote Report from Ground Zero after 9/11, and he retired from the job, and he sold his interest in Firehouse Magazine. And we were just talking. We talked on the phone all the time. And he said, I just went to a funeral today. One of my guys died from 82 and 31. And a month later, called again. I went to another funeral today. Another guy died. And I said, Dennis, all your friends are dying. He goes, yeah. He said, we never used a mask. Cancer, heart disease, blah, 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 everything. And I had, as you probably know, I background in photography. I said, Dennis, we got to get the survivors, the guys who are still left. We need to capture them, do something. He said, good idea. 15 minutes later, I get an email with 13 names on it, name, email address, and phone number. I did nothing with it. Fast forward another 5 or 6 years, it's COVID. 2020, we're all sitting in our homes, we got nothing to do. I called Dennis up, another guy died. I said, Dennis, I'm doing it now. And he updated, of the 13, I think 6 or 7 of them had died in the 4 or 5 years. And I said, I'm going to do it now. And I said, I got the time, let's plan it. And we started, him and I talked, and we had a couple more people. And I put together a listing of some of the people that I knew, a lot of guys from the island, like your dad, who was one of the first, firefighters. And I said, I knew you were on the job, so this guy's going to be in the book because your family means a lot to me. I don't want to cry, but it does. So I started putting these names together, and I just had been reading the Glory Days on Facebook, and Dan Potter, right, it does that. And I just, for the hell of it, I just said, let me send a text message to Dan and see what he says. I sent him a text message. 2 minutes later, the phone rings. Hey, Glenn, Dan Potter. We've now become best friends. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he's like, this is awesome. Let's do it. And now it was the summer of 2021 where everything was opening. The world was opening back up. And we did it. So we started the book. And it was in August of 2021. I had the first photo shoot at the Massapequa Firehouse. I said, I cannot say enough good about the Massapequa Fire Department. I called Massapequa Fire Department and just said, hey, I got this idea. Chief Batt was the chief of the department, Dave, and this is my idea. He said, let me check with the commissioners. Commissioners said yes. They said, anytime you come to Long Island, you got a house. I got a key fob to get into firehouses in Massapequa. They treated me like I never left.
That's awesome.
And they gave me a place, and we shot 8 guys that first day, a couple guys from Massapequa. Tommy Kuffner, I don't know if you know Tommy Kuffner, was one of them, and Gio from Bethpage, who had been in Squad 270s, you know. So we shot 8 guys, and Dan and I had never met each other. The first day we met, and we just hit it off. He sat in one room and interviewed the guys. I sat in another room, set up a studio, and took pictures, and that's where we started. And the funny thing is, somebody in FDNY, and there's no secrets, there's 11,000 members of FDNY. There's no secrets on that job, just like there's no secrets in the Volly departments. And somebody called Dan up and said, we know you're doing a book. And he's like, yeah. He goes, we don't want you shooting our guys in Volly firehouses. They gave us a place at Fort Totten.
Fort Totten.
They gave us a place at Fort Totten. Is that where I shot you?
That's where I had to go, yeah.
They gave us a place in Fort Totten and said, you got this spot. You just call us the night before. They gave me a phone number to call. They gave Dan a phone number to call. You call, just tell them you're coming the next day. And the incident management team for the IMT team in Fort Totten, they said, there's a spare room there. You use that place. You shoot our guys on our property. And if you need any place else, you just call us, and you can go to any firehouse in the city. It's pretty heady stuff. So we did it. And it was funny because when we met Tommy Richardson at Deer Park, Dan and I said, were you behind that? And he goes, Glenn, Dan, he said, I'm so high up. There's so many things I got to worry about. Your book ain't one of them. So it didn't even get to me. So he said, I don't know who it was. He said, they made a really good choice, taking care of you guys. I don't know who did it. I was like, all right, Chief, thank you. So that's where the book came from.
And now that book, people can get on Amazon?
Yep, you can go to theysavedny.com and buy it directly from me, or you can buy it on Amazon. It's They Save New York. I printed, I think, just under 4,000 copies, and I've sold about 3,500, so only a couple
Yeah,
hundred
it's
left.
amazing.
I
So-
apologize for not bringing the book. I was gonna
Unreal,
bring it.
Kev.
Yes, I know, my fault.
So
Unreal.
I got to tell you, 18-year-old Volly in Massapequa, barely weighing 125 pounds, I've gained a few since then, to spend time with Vinnie Dunn, with Tommy Kuffner, with Mickey Dugan, with all these, Mickey Conboy from Rescue 3. I mean, all these guys who I just looked up to, and to have them thank me for putting them in the book, I'm like, no. Thank you for
Right,
being in my
yeah,
book.
for the story.
And I don't even know why I'm in it.
Yeah.
But
You're in it
it's
'cause of your
it's-
dad.
It's because of my dad and Glenn. But
you didn't do
I was
shit.
like, I'm taking pictures with guys. When I went down there, and I'm like looking around the room, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Lowly
So
lieutenant.
there's about 10 guys from Massapequa in that book.
Yeah, there are.
Oh, wow.
And people said, how come all these guys from the Massapequa Fire Department are in the book? I said, when you publish a book, you put your
You get
friends
to
in the
pick
book.
your.
Yeah, right.
There you
Pretty
That makes
simple.
sense.
Yeah.
So, tell us about Command Fire Apparatus. I know it's a little bit different. You're doing mainly used apparatus, right?
Yeah, only used apparatus.
Only used apparatus.
So I started the company here on Long Island in 1987, and my little niche and one of the things, the principles of business that just hold true, it doesn't matter what year, whether it's 100 years ago or 100 years in the future, is if you can do something that's just a little different than what other people are doing and people respond to it. So until I came along, pretty much the used apparatus, which is a real huge segment of the market, because 80%, this is a number that blows people away, 80% of the fire departments in the United States will never have the money to buy a new piece of apparatus.
I believe it.
Yeah.
80%.
Yep. And especially now, I
A
don't
pumper's
mean
$1 million.
I don't mean to cut you off, but
20%
between the
is right
price
here.
right now, the price of a rig, how long it takes to get a rig
3
from
years.
yeah. So, I mean, you look at people across the board, there are fire chiefs out there that are now buying used apparatus, having them refurbished and putting them in service because that makes more sense and is quicker and cheaper than it is to actually buy a new
Yeah,
apparatus.
we talked about last episode too. Like even the newer trucks that are coming out, all sorts of fucking problems.
We were talking about that this afternoon about computers.
And with the computer systems, and then even like the ambulances, people are just getting them rechassied.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going out and buying like a whole new thing. So I assume, within the past couple of years, I'm sure your business probably popped off a little bit.
What percent of the showroom sales do you think are here?
Yeah, right. There's got to be
On Long Island?
Yeah. Phil
Well,
said
there's,
the other
there's-
20%.
there is the fire truck, the custom fire apparatus, and there's the Long Island custom fire apparatus. There's
Yeah,
like
there's
two
probably a
brands. They hear
difference.
Long Island and they go, price just went up.
Yeah, right.
But when you talk to Glenn, I mean, he's turning out, how many apparatus do we
do
talk?
about 100 a year.
About 100 a year
100
that
a
he's
year?
turning over, which is a
Holy
lot.
shit.
That's a lot of rigs.
That's a lot of
It's like
rigs.
2 a week.
Is there a particular type of truck that you see that's over the years, like we talk about ebbs and flows of the fire service all the time. Are there ebbs and flows within apparatus, whether it's specialty equipment, ladder trucks, quints?
Yeah, it goes all the full gamut. If you want to give me 2 minutes, I'll give you
Yeah.
two pieces of advice.
Absolutely.
Don't ever buy a pumper with less than a 750-gallon booster tank, because 90% of the used apparatus go to areas that are rural. So they're carrying, I mean, we are blessed on Long Island because aside from the Far East End and a couple places on the North Shore, there's hydrants everywhere. Not quite, 150 or 200 feet in New York City, but still 500 feet, 400 feet. When you go where I sell the fire app rigs, 90% of them go to places that don't have fire hydrants. So you pulling up with 500-gallon tank, which is the average Long Island pumper, doesn't do them any good. So the resale value is higher if you buy a bigger tank. 750, 1,000. I can see where in suburban areas they don't want 1,000. As a fire chief, 1,000 gallons of water gives you about 6 minutes at 150 gallons a minute. That's a lot of time, and particularly when you're looking. I'm going to turn the hat and go back to command chief. That's a lot of time for your first due engine to put some fire out.
For sure.
So that's a big thing. But I have people tell me all the time, we just are not buying anything less than a 750 tank.
I remember when I joined, we had two engines that were 500-gallon tanks, and the whole thing was like, you got to get this pumper dressed in 2 minutes. because that's
The hydrant.
that's yeah, the
Hydrant
hydrant's got to be dressed in 2 minutes because that's about the amount of time you have till 500 gallons is gone. And they since replaced those pumpers with 750 gallon tanks.
Look at what we're talking about in the whole fire service, in every firehouse in the United States, recruitment and retention. We have less people. We were talking about this earlier at lunch. You know what, a fire that was a Bedford fire in Massapequa had 2 stations. Now there's 5 or 6 department mutual aid just to assemble 25 people, 18, 20, 25 people. So if your first 2 engines pulling up and has only 2 minutes to get them additional water, you're short a guy. You want to leave a guy at the hydrant? So, I mean, there's just the whole thing, it works in. And then when you talk about these rural places, I mean, I sell engines weekly to places that don't have a fire hydrant in town.
Right.
So that's a big thing. The other thing, which please don't throw anything at me, ladder trucks without pumps are very hard to resell.
Yep.
So I get it. Like I said, I came from Long Island. I do a lot, you know, with FDNY and other big cities, and I get it. And I can see where trucks really don't need to have pumps. But if you want to resell that engine, it sells much quicker if it has a pump on it. And ladders without waterways, also, if you're going to buy a straight truck, we're not on Long Island. We're not FDNY in the suburbs of Philly and suburbs of Washington, Boston, wherever. We're not FDNY. You know, we're not Philly. We're not Boston. So a ladder truck, you know, in the FDNY system, where, you know, you basically have tower ladders for water application, and very rare. I mean, it's a couple times a year, if that, in the city, they use ladder pipes.
Yeah.
So ladders
Rare.
without waterways, when you go to some place in Tennessee or Kentucky or Indiana and say, well, I got a 10-year-old or 15-year-old ladder truck, doesn't have a pump. Oh, we can live without a pump, but we can put water through it, right? No, it doesn't have a waterway either. Click. So, you know, the one thing, and the last thing I'm going to talk about apparatus, and I have a couple departments on Long Island who've gone to this program, is get rid of them quicker. If you get rid of your apparatus, your rigs, when they're 10 years old, you can get 50%
lot
of what
more.
you paid for them
Absolutely.
when they were new. If you keep them till they're 20, 25, 30 years old, you get a lot less money for them. So in the interim, your maintenance costs go up, the amount of money you get for the rig goes down, and the cost of the new apparatus is going up 8-10% a year. So if you get rid of it when it's 10 years old, you get $300,000 for it, and the new one costs $1 million. If you keep it for 10 more years, you get $20,000, and the new one now costs $1.3 million. So instead of a spread of $300,000 or $400,000 for a new one, or $500,000, you now have over $1 million spread when you keep the rigs till they're 25 or 30 years old.
Interesting.
And the interim, you've paid maintenance. You're going to rebuild the pump. You're going to rebuild the engine. You're going to rebuild the transmission. You're going to have to put new axles or tires on. I mean, all the stuff you got to do.
Right.
Sounds like I can go to my firehouse and say it's time to get a new ladder.
Well, you see
it's
some
the
departments
same
where they
as all 10 years.
replace their whole fleet, and people are like, oh, I can't believe they're spending that money, or why are they doing this, or like the lease purchase programs that are out there. And we've done that now, where we lease it and get a reduced cost because they're buying it outright, and then you pay it off quicker.
Right.
And now you own it. So, you know, but turning apparatus over, and then also like lease to purchase and stuff like that, it can help you and save you money in the long run, which sounds crazy, but it does.
It actually saves
Yeah,
you
but
money.
I
saves
feel like
a
half
lot.
the districts out here, it's nope, brand new, shiny. We don't care how much it costs.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, you could still buy brand new shiny and save yourselves money. Like, you know, when we bought the lease purchase, we bought 4 apparatus together, and because it's an automatic buyout, it reduced the cost. We saved money on the initial purchase by a lot of money right off the bat. And then, you know, we got into a 5-year lease, but paid it off in 3. So now it's you're saving even more. So when you can start actually looking at numbers, and Glenn explained it very well, of getting rid of the apparatus a little sooner. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, that thing's perfect. We don't need to get rid of it. But in the long run, you're actually saving money.
Yeah,
Which
it's an asset. It depreciates
Correct.
every year.
Right. Now, do you do equipment as well?
No, just the rigs.
And do you do anything like with the rigs? Do you customize them? You know, anything like that?
Try not to. My business model is to basically buy rigs that don't need a heck of a lot. So that's I like units that don't need a lot. Occasionally we do some paint work. We try not to paint the whole rigs, but like I just bought a very 10-year-old pumper just last week or the week before, and it was yellow. We got it at a good price because it was yellow, and so we're painting it red and black. It's actually, the black was painted
it'll sell better.
Thursday.
Yeah,
it'll sell
for
better.
sure.
Yeah.
But we're not a refurbishing place. We service them. So the whole thing that I came up with is treat the people buying a used rig the way they would get treated if they bought a new rig. So we letter them. We use Norris lettering here on Long Island, plug. We letter it for them. We service it. New pump test, new ladder test. The upholstery's redone, cleaned up. If there's any scratches, marks, whatever, we clean that up. So it's the next best thing to a new rig. Nothing is as good as a new rig, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, well,
Where do you do a lot of buying from and selling to, like geographic wise?
So we buy, in fact, the first name of my company when I started in '87 was Northeast Fire Apparatus, because we basically bought from the Northeast, but we did some corporate changes. It's now Command Fire Apparatus. I like the command stuff. But and we sell really generally to smaller fire departments throughout the eastern half of the United States. I mean, basically the Mississippi River in one state west of there. So we're really selling there. We don't sell very much out in the mountain states. We don't sell much in the Pacific Northwest or the Southwest. So big states for us are Kentucky, Tennessee, upstate New York, West Virginia, Missouri, Iowa is a big state, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South
A
Carolina.
lot of East Coast stuff.
Yeah, like Florida's almost all paid departments. We buy some rigs out of Florida. We don't sell too many in Florida. But, it's just generally smaller departments, though you mentioned earlier, it's a whole new ballgame in the last 2-3 years. So
Absolutely.
we're selling rigs to people. So a lot of people have planned replacement. But if you're a career department and you've got engine 5 on the west side of town and engine 5 blows up the engine, you call PRC1, Rosenbauer, whoever you use, and say, I want a new engine. 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah.
They can't live with a hole in engine 5 for 4 years. So they're calling me up saying, you got something that for $100,000 is going to last me 4 years till I get my new engine, and then we'll have that as a dedicated spare.
Do you have
Same thing with apparatus accidents. They're rolling. If somebody rolls a rig or something like that, you can't replace it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You got to buy a used apparatus.
Do you have inventory? Do you stock a lot?
Yeah. We have. It's kind of funny because if you look on a lot of the websites, and they'll look like they have 100 or 150 rigs, and they're all, most of our competitors are actually brokers who don't have them. There's one or two people sitting in an office, and they might have 200, 300 rigs on their website. Well, you're a small company because you have 40. Yeah, I got 40, but they're all in one place.
Right.
Yeah,
And the guy
got 'em
that
ready to
has
go.
150.
They don't even have them. They're just calling 5 of you and saying, "Oh, I could get this one."
Right, they're
Yeah.
brokers. There's nothing wrong with brokers. I mean, they do a service, but when you buy it from a broker, the broker says, "Come to Setauket, pick it up and take it home, give us a check," and it's got the concrete warranty. You know what the concrete warranty is?
Yep.
When it
So
leaves
it's
our
the
concrete, it's off
pavement.
warranty.
Yep.
So
That's it.
so I give them a 1-year warranty. So like I said, we letter them, we deliver them, we service them, we do all that other stuff. So it's there's an ambulance company. Is it called South? What's the one?
South
South
Country?
Country.
South Country. So I bought a rescue from Hopog, right?
That's
up the
my
street.
rescue
Yep.
truck.
Right,
Yeah.
I bought that. Brought it to
Sold it to them.
Pennsylvania. South Country called up and
Yep.
bought the truck from us. So
And you're
it
like,
went
God
from
damn it.
yeah,
I gotta go back
Hopog
there.
to Lancaster, PA, and then Lancaster,
And
PA
all the way back.
there.
That thing, that truck's got a command center in it. That thing's got everything.
loved
I'm
that
so
truck.
curious to see what's going on. Driving that truck was amazing compared to the new. Right now we have a Rescue 1 Spartan chassis.
Right.
And driving old Dine, or it's my 389, it's something about the freaking mechanical steering, like everything about it was just awesome to be in.
I used to love
That
the
truck
old rig
was
stuff.
that truck went down to 9/11
Yeah,
Ground
that thing went to
Zero.
9/11, yep.
I remember they were talking about it when they went. I guess all the trucks went down to, was it Corona down there?
Oh, the staging area.
Staging
yeah,
area,
and they
yep.
they were like walking, looking at all the engines, and one of the FDNY coordinators like, look, what the fuck is in this thing? And the captain
Everything.
rattled it off. They're like, you're bringing that thing down to Ground Zero. So like, even like seeing the pictures of that rig down at Ground Zero, and then riding on it, for all the years that I was in Hopog, there was just so much history behind it, and like the legends that went through and rode that truck as well.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something really funny.
Yeah.
Ground Zero was just, if you aren't from the New York area, you don't appreciate what an incredibly sad, and it was a life-changing day for all of us.
Huge place.
I lost 32 guys I knew. Some of you lost more. To this day, people still call me up and say, oh, we bought this rig and we want to sell it. And it was at ground zero. And I'm like, your rig wasn't at ground zero. It wasn't there. Well, the department that we bought it from upstate New York said it was at ground zero. It wasn't at ground zero. And it's just that it hurts me a little bit being, as close. And, like I said, I'm a New Yorker, even though I've lived 35 years in Pennsylvania. But it has become this like urban legend of like this rig. I said, if all the rigs in the country that said they were at ground zero, there wouldn't have been any room in Manhattan for all the rigs.
And they're trying to use it as like a point
selling
to,
point.
Yeah, that's
Which kind
not
of
good.
It's crazy.
pisses me off. But
That
I
makes sense.
tend to not scream at customers.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
They say when we cleaned that thing out, we had it in Monisquan. It's funny, I brought this up last week. We were taking out all that thing had so much equipment. I don't know if you saw the inside of it. The compartments, they didn't end. Like you could sleep 20 people in this
Right,
truck.
that was
Like,
the Salisbury. That was the classic truck.
they say there was still 9/11 dust in the thing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot of rigs that still have it.
Yep.
yeah, for sure.
We were finding dust years later.
Oh, I bet.
So
And now, do you have, was it an old Mac rig or something like that you've
He's
kind of
smiling.
been holding on to?
So I got a Massapequa Fire Department, East End, 636, 1963 Max C model, thermodyne diesel engine, 5-speed manual transmission, 85-foot Maxim aerial. The first diesel fire truck on Long Island.
Or is it in your backyard right now?
It's in my warehouse.
it's not leaving the warehouse.
Yeah, I read about it. I'm like, I got to ask him about
Every
it.
day I go in the warehouse and I just touch it and kiss it. And that's my baby. And so, yes, I have that. It's been repainted. Massapequa sold it when we got a Grumman aerial tower. We sold it to Pleasant Unity Fire Department outside of Pittsburgh. And whatever, 20 years later, I got a phone call. I had a tower ladder from Garden City Park for sale. And they called up about that, and they said, do you take trade-ins? I said, yeah, occasionally. Oh, we have a 1963 Mac ladder. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of old. I don't think so. This is like in the mid-90s. I don't think so. So the guy said, oh, it's too bad. It's and the ladder's been condemned. The ladder doesn't pass the aerial test anymore. I said, yeah, it's really not worth anything to me. And he goes, oh, yeah, came from Long Island. I said, is it red? Yeah, all red. What kind of ladder? It was 85-foot Maxim ladder. I said,
Give me that.
did it have an Anytime Baby F-14 sticker on the side of the aerial? How the fuck did you know? And I'm like, because I put that sticker on it. One of the guys in the firehouse worked at the Grumman plant in Bethpage where they assembled the F-14s, and he brought the sticker. So on the sides of the ladder one night, when the commissioners weren't there, we put the Anytime Baby stickers on it. He goes, yeah, it's still on the truck. I said, I want that truck.
I'll give you $500 for it.
I said, I don't care if you buy this tower ladder, this LTI tower from me. I want that truck. He said, well, it's not going to do anything for us. He said, it's the ladder that failed test. They came, they bought the LTI tower. We picked it up. I cried when that truck came in. That was the truck that I drove.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Damn.
So we repainted it and lettered it, and Morris lettered it hand gold, and it's just, that's my baby. So I take it out for parades and it's come up a couple times for some sad occasions for some of my guys died, and I bring it up for that.
Wow.
Right.
I brought it up for Massapequa. I guess it was the 100th anniversary. That was right before 9/11, and I think I brought it up for 2 funerals, and that's like the least I could do.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, Chief, I know we got to get you on the road here back
on the
to
train.
Pennsylvania to the train. So just want to thank you again for coming out, and sitting here for an hour and a couple minutes to talk about everything. And, we look forward to seeing what you got going on.
I'll share the links to your book.
Yeah, too.
I'll put it in
Yeah,
the
if anybody's looking for apparatus, reach out to Glenn and Command Fire Apparatus.
Buying or
and
selling.
Maybe you can find something, or you want to sell an apparatus to them, and we can pass it on to another volunteer department or somebody that can really use it.
Yep.
So,
I had to tell everybody, particularly the fire service today, be really safe, really take care of your crew. We were talking earlier, one of my guys dropped dead of a heart problem in front of me, and that changed my life. I said the thing about commanding fires, it's a big deal. And I'm I'm honored to be here, but if there's anything I would like people, I'll give you one more story.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I am currently got some potential health issues. We'll leave it delicately. So when anybody has a health issue, what the first thing you do is you check the doctors and see what the reviews are in the doctors and everything else. You want to go to the doctor that's got the best reviews and best record. When they call 911, they don't have a choice about, well, I live in the Hot Dog Fire District, but I really want Smithtown to come. They're getting your fire department. Mm-hmm. You got to be the best fire department because they don't have a choice. So everything the biggest thing that I preach when I do instructing on command stuff is that everything you do, and I learned this from somebody named Gordon Graham. I don't know if you ever heard of Gordon Graham. Predictable is preventable. When you are the fire department, it is within your power to predict everything that can go bad in your first due area. You can basically prepare for that. So when I hear fire departments say, well, we didn't have any water, there wasn't any water there last week. It's certainly not going to be there tonight, the night of the fire. You know, if the hydrants are bad, or if there's too far, or if whatever, if the building is too far from the street, you can't reach it with the aerial. All those things are predictable. So a lot of people say, well, we're only volunteer fire department. They don't care. They can't call another fire department. You're it. So you be the best chief that you can. Do everything that you can. And the other thing that's really, really important, when you're on a job at FDNY, you're going to fires, you're going all the time. We get complacent in the volunteer fire service because there's a lot of fire departments that don't go to that many fires.
Right.
You got to be the best all the time. Mm-hmm. Training, training, training. So what you're doing is really important. The stuff about the command board, all the things that the people that you have on, training is really the key to it. And it's more important for what we do than the busy departments because they practice it all the time. We just don't have enough fires. Brunacini used to say it. We're sending you to all the fires we know about. There's no fires that we're not sending you to. That's it. That we don't have any fires in reserve. So if you get one job a year, you still got to act and perform to the best of your ability at that time. So like I said, it's an honor to be here, and what you're doing is really special. And telling those stories, I use the final line I'll say is, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you came from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you for being
again.
here. We really appreciate it.
And we'd, some point down the line, love to have you back on.
Yeah.
I'm here. This guy's got my phone number.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
31.
Episode 31 out.
All
Great.
good?
Great
Awesome.
job, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.